You see, in life, there are times when everything looks perfect on the outside, but behind closed doors, there are secrets, deep, painful secrets. There was a man named Ezekiel, but people just called him Ez. He was young, handsome, and extremely rich. You know, the kind of man who wears neatly ironed shirts, always smells nice, and drives the latest cars. Ez lived in a big, beautiful house in the city, the kind of house with high walls, shiny tiles in every room. He owned different businesses, some in real estate, some in tech, and others no one really knew about. But what people admired most about him wasn't just his money, it was how he treated his wife and kids. His wife's name was Favour. Favour was a woman who made heads turn. Not because she was proud or loud, but because she carried herself with beauty and grace. She loved fashion and always looked classy. Whether she was going to a party or just staying at home, she dressed well. And oh, she loved her family dearly. Ez and Favour had been married for 10 years. Their home looked like a dream. They had 2 wonderful children, David, their 8-year-old son, who loved football and asked questions about everything, and Sophia, their sweet 5-year-old daughter, who had the cutest smile and followed her mother everywhere. Favour and Ez were like best friends. Sometimes in the evening, after dinner, they would sit in the living room with soft music playing, talking and laughing. Ez would tell her about his day, and she would share funny stories about the kids. It was a peaceful home, no shouting, no fighting, just love. You see, in all those 10 years, Favour had never met Ez's family. Not his mother. Not his father. Not even a cousin. At first, she thought maybe they were just not that close. But after some years, she began to wonder. Whenever she asked him about his family, Ez would change the topic or say something strange. "There's a curse in my family," he told her once, looking serious. "I don't want our kids near it. Let them grow first. When the time is right, I will take you there." Favour loved him, so she believed him. She trusted him. She didn't want to nag or disturb him. So she stopped asking questions. The years passed, and their happy home continued, until one small conversation opened a door that would change everything. It happened one sunny afternoon. Favour's best friend, Kemi, came visiting. They had known each other since childhood, and Kemi was the kind of friend who said things the way they were. That day, they laughed, shared snacks, and talked about everything from fashion to parenting. Then Kemi asked a question that froze the air. "My friend," Kemi said, "how is your mother-in-law and father-in-law?" Favour blinked. My friend, to be honest, I've never seen them." Kemi sat up. "What do you mean? You've been married for 10 years. Favour nodded slowly. "Yes. I've asked him many times, but he says his family has problems. That there's a curse, and he doesn't want to involve us. He says his mother is alive, though." Kemi looked at her like someone had dropped cold water on her back. "My dear," she said seriously, "this is not normal. You need to ask questions. 10 years? 2 children? And now you're carrying another baby, and you've never met his family. Please, talk to him. Don't let this continue." Favour nodded quietly, but her mind was no longer at peace. A few weeks later, during the children's school holiday, Favour took David and Sophia to visit her mother in the village. The kids were so excited to see their grandmother. They hugged her, ran around, and ate jollof rice and fried chicken while Grandma smiled. That evening, after putting the kids to bed, Favour sat with her mother in the living room. "My daughter," her mother said gently, "when last did you hear from your husband's mother?" Favour sighed. "Mommy, I've never spoken to her. I've never even seen her. Anytime I ask, 'Is my husband mom?' he tells me it's not time." Her mother's face changed. 10 years? Not time. After 2 children and another on the way? No, my daughter. It is time. Go back and tell him you want to see his family. What if something happens to him tomorrow? Who will you call? Where will you start from? You must know your husband's people. That night, Favour didn't sleep well. Her mind was spinning. Everything her mother and Kemi said kept playing in her head. And that was the moment her heart began to search for answers. She didn't know yet that the truth was darker than anything she had imagined. After spending 2 peaceful days at her mother's house, Favour returned to the city with her children. The drive home was quiet. Even the kids, who normally played and argued in the back seat, sensed that something was not right. But the silence in her heart was louder. That night, after feeding the children and tucking them into bed, she laid beside Is in their big, soft bed. Normally, she would fall asleep after a few minutes, wrapped in his arms. But not this time. Her mind was racing. She kept thinking of her mother's words and Kemi's. It was like their voices wouldn't leave her alone. Somewhere around midnight, she finally drifted off into sleep. But what she saw in her dream shook her. In the dream, she was standing alone in a graveyard. Dark clouds covered the sky. There were old, broken tombstones everywhere. The wind was howling, and everything was gray and cold. She looked down and saw that she was crying. Her clothes were soaked with tears and dust. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. She was surrounded by silence and sadness. Suddenly, she heard a voice whispering her name. Favour. She turned around quickly, but there was no one. Then, out of nowhere, a hand touched her shoulder. She screamed. And that's when she woke up, gasping for breath. She sat up on the bed, shaking. Her hands were cold, her heart pounding fast. Is, who was lying beside her, woke up from the scream. My love, he said, sitting up and turning on the bedside lamp. What is it? Are you okay? She wiped the sweat from her forehead and looked at him. She wanted to say everything. She wanted to tell him how the dream made her feel, but instead, she shook her head. It's just a bad dream, she said. I'm fine now. Is looked at her for a moment. Are you sure? She nodded again. Yes. I'm fine. He turned off the light and lay back down. In a few minutes, he was asleep again. But Favour stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. The dream felt too real. It was like a warning. Like something, or someone, was trying to tell her something. The next morning, after preparing breakfast and getting the kids ready for their holiday lessons, she told Is she needed to go to the market. He smiled and kissed her on the forehead. Buy something sweet for the kids, he said. Favour nodded and left the house. She drove straight to the house of one of Isa's oldest and best friends, Solomon. Solomon was a kind man. He and Is had been close for years. Favour remembered seeing him at their wedding. He had always treated her with respect and kindness. She knocked on the door and he welcomed her warmly. Ah, Favour. Long time. Come in, come in. She sat down in the living room, her heart beating fast. Mr. Solomon, she said, I need to ask you something. Please, I beg you, tell me the truth. He became serious. Of course. I promise. What is it? She took a deep breath. Do you know where my husband comes from? Have you ever seen his family? His mother? His father? Anyone at all? Solomon looked down. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Favour, he said gently, I won't lie to you. I don't know where Is comes from. In all the years we've been friends, he has never mentioned his family. Not once. I've told him many stories about my own family, but he never talks about his. I just assumed he had his reasons. I never pushed. Favour's eyes filled with tears. This is too much, she whispered. Solomon leaned forward. You need to talk to him. Ask him again. Don't let it go. This is important. You deserve to know. She thanked him and left. But as she drove back home, her mind was full of questions. She didn't even realize when she parked the car by the side of the road and sat there, staring into space. Who is this man I married? She thought. Why doesn't anyone know his family? What is he hiding? When she finally got home, Is was waiting at the door. He hugged her warmly and asked, How was the market, my love? Favour didn't hug him back. She stepped back and looked into his eyes. Where did you come from, Is? She asked, her voice shaking. Where is your family? I want to know now. Is looked confused. My love, we've talked about this before. I told you, when the time is right. Favour raised her voice. Is, I'm tired of waiting. It's been over 10 years. I've never seen your brother, your sister, your mother, nobody. Are you a ghost? Isa's eyes narrowed. Did you just call me a ghost? I'm sorry, she said, tears forming in her eyes. But this is too much. Everyone is asking me questions. Even my own mother. Even my friends. They think I'm lying. They think I'm hiding something. And now I'm pregnant again. I have 2 children for you, and I don't even know where you came from. Favour, he said softly, reaching out to hold her. Calm down. She pulled away. No. Don't tell me to calm down. I want answers. And I want them now. Is was silent. He sat down on the edge of the couch and rubbed his forehead. The room was quiet. Too quiet. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. And in that moment, Favour knew something was deeply wrong. 2 weeks passed like heavy clouds hanging over the house. The once joyful home that used to ring with laughter, stories, and love had now become a place of silence and tears. Favour no longer smiled. She didn't laugh with Is anymore. They no longer ate together. Every night, Favour cried on her pillow while her husband lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, saying nothing. One evening, she stood in front of him with tears in her eyes and said, If you don't take me to your family, Is, I will carry my children and leave this house. Her voice shook as she spoke, but her eyes were firm. She meant every word. That night, Is couldn't sleep. He turned from side to side, his mind running wild. The truth he had been hiding for so long was pressing hard on his heart. He looked at his wife and children, all asleep and peaceful, and whispered to himself. I can't lose them, but what will happen if they know the truth? The next morning, before the children even woke up, he sat beside Favour on the bed and held her hands gently. My love, he said softly, go and get the children ready. We are going to see my family today. Favour's eyes widened. Are you serious? He nodded. She jumped up and hugged him tightly. Thank you, my love. But even as she smiled with joy, Isa's eyes were filled with something else, fear. He walked out to the car and leaned on the door, staring into the sky. The past was finally catching up with him. The drive to the village was long and quiet. Favour was holding his hand. The children were excited, looking through the car windows and asking questions about the village. When they reached the village, he slowed the car down. He pointed to a dusty path. My love, he said, my childhood friend lives around here. I need to give him something very important. Just go straight to the fourth compound on the right, that is my family house. I'll meet you there soon. Favour frowned. But can't we just go to your family house together first? Is shook his head. Please, this won't take long. I already told him I was coming today. Favour nodded slowly. Okay. Make sure you come quickly. He stepped out of the car and waved at his wife and kids as they drove off. As soon as they were out of sight, he sat on a rock near the road and started crying. His heart was heavy. The truth he had been hiding for 15 years was finally about to be exposed. Meanwhile, Favour arrived at the compound with David and Sophia. The villagers stared curiously at the car and the strangers. Favour came down from the car, holding her children's hands. She saw an elderly woman sitting under a tree and walked towards her. Good afternoon, Ma, she greeted politely. Please, I'm looking for Mama Is. The old woman looked up slowly and said, Mama Is? From where? Which Is? Favour smiled and said, My husband is Maduka. I'm his wife. Suddenly, the old woman's face changed. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, Is Maduka? Favour was confused. Yes, Ma. We came together, but he stopped on the way to visit a friend. He said I should come ahead with the children. Two younger people, a man and a woman, rushed out from one of the rooms. They had heard the name and came running. Please, the man asked, who are these children? Favour looked around, still confused. They are my children. David and Sophia. Their father is Maduka, my husband. At that moment, the old woman stood up slowly and said, My daughter, follow me. I want to show you something. Favour held her children's hands and followed the woman through a narrow path behind the house. They walked slowly, past banana trees and old sheds, until they reached a quiet place. The woman stopped, pointed to a spot on the ground covered with flowers, and said, This is where we buried Is. 15 years ago. Favour's heart stopped. She turned to look at the woman. What are you saying, Ma? The woman turned to her, tears running down her face. My son, Is Maduka, died 15 years ago in a car accident. We buried him here. He was only 28. Favour's mouth dropped open. She couldn't speak. Her hands shook. The world began to spin. She tried to say something, but no words came. Then everything went black. She collapsed to the ground. Isa's brother ran forward and carried her back to the compound. They placed her on a mat and began to fan her. After some minutes, she opened her eyes and sat up slowly. What is happening? She whispered. Isa's mother came closer, holding David and Sophia. My grandchildren, she said, sobbing. They look so much like my son, so much. She knelt beside Favour and hugged her. My daughter? I don't know how this is possible. But you are welcome. You and your children are part of this family now. And that was how the mystery came to light. A ghost had married a woman, lived with her for 10 years, and even fathered children. Is this even possible in today's world? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and if you have not yet subscribed to Train of African Folktales, kindly click the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss our next mysterious story. Thanks for watching.